Everybody to the Hearthstone Pro-Am, brought to you by NVIDIA GeForce. We're halfway through the day. We just saw Life Coach defeat Trump 3-0, very convincingly, but it just tapped the lineup pretty well overall. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he just uh, did Life Coach things as normal and was able to run over Trump this week, but maybe next week if they meet or some other time in the future, Trump might get an opportunity to maybe even put Life Coach on the opposite end of things. Coming up, we have Strifecro versus Ty. Strive Cloud9, one of the most established players in Hearthstone for a long time. Lots of respect, nothing but the utmost honor for something like him. Versus Tice, a guy who had to carve out his name over a process of being an open qualified player for many months and has now established himself, in my opinion, as one of the top. I would say Tice is easily one of the top 10 players in the world, just in terms of his consistency and his ability to play the game at such a high level. Really appreciate how he's a great story of a guy who's worked his way up the ladder.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Tice is a fantastic player and a fantastic person as well. I got to meet him about a month and a half ago, and he was such a nice guy. He sat in the audience first, chatting to us about the games we were watching and such. And like you said, he was a workhorse. He proper grinded through the qualifiers, the I half UK I half you King of the Hill. Oh man, I don't think anyone else dominated that as much as him. I think I think it was Alchemix who got close, but Tej was just on a rampage during that.
Yeah, it was a few weeks for Alchemist. Savitz also had a pretty good run too. Tice was the one who got 9 weeks or something absurd. It was just like it was so long that like at one point it was just like a little boring because it's like Tice just kept beating everybody. It was like, well, this is not really fun to watch because Tice just keeps destroying everybody who got in his path. Even Strifecro, I remember Strifecro was up 3-0 in that best of seven, and then Tice reverse swept to win that series. Really stuff overall. Now let's take a look at the lineups here. Strifecro has Druid, Hunter, and Warlock. Tice has that Rogue, Mage, and Hunter. Hunter is, in a weird spot right now. Where do you see Hunter in the metagame?
People are so aware of it right now. I think it's a good ladder. It's definitely a great ladder deck because it's fast. Tournament play, though, it can fall short to lineups. I mean, it only gets one thing Hunter was really good at before Conquest was just snowballing free wins. It doesn't have that opportunity anymore because once you've won one game with it, it's out of the question. But people are starting to figure it out, and people are starting to tech against it. And I think that's maybe what the problem is. I think Hunter maybe needs to die down for a little bit, and then it can come back up like it always does.
That's right. It's fascinating because in a specific best of X against a player that that you can prepare for your opponent, you can capitalize on normal play styles. For example, if Hyped from Tempo Storm really loves bringing a Rogue, you can bring 3 decks that kill Rogue and like guaranteed kill him. And it doesn't matter if you're down 0-2, he has to eventually play and win with that deck. You can absolutely target it and win. And Hunter became one of those things too, where people are like, I gotta kill Hunter, so I'm gonna put Antique Heal by in my Rogue deck. I'm gonna put Flare in my Hunter deck. Like that kind of stuff is really funny to see if people can really out tech their opponents here. Not sure how successful it's been because I know Kazan Mystic has always been in and out of decks. It would be surprising to see Strifecro bring Kazan. It doesn't feel like his type of choice to make unless it was like super, super dominant. I would expect just normal, straight, good decks. I think it's like a standard mid-range Druid. Probably a Zoo deck, which Strifecro really loves to play too, and a Face Hunter. For Tice, I'm just gonna think it's Mech Mage. Oh no, maybe Freeze Mage. I know Tice loves Freeze Mage, even though Nylum really likes running that Pilot Sky Gold Mech Mage.
Yeah, I mean, Tice played Mech Mage for a very long time. Even before it became the powerhouse that it was, I'm pretty sure he played it for quite a bit when Undertaker was still dominant. But yeah, Freeze Mage is just so powerful right now. It's very tempting to just take that over every mage deck because of how much Thaurissan has affected it, how much it isn't affected by the old format, Conquest, and you can get one win with it as long as you don't run into a really hard counter like Control Warrior. And Control Warrior is not really that dominant in the meta right now, so it's a good time for Freeze Mage to shine.
Well, we're going to start off with Freeze Mage's Hunter, and this should be a good opportunity for Tice to get a 1-0 lead. Freeze Mage is one of the few classes that can deal with Hunter very effectively. You never really have to trigger Explosive Trap. You can freeze the state of the board. You have Ice Barrier to gain a lot of health, and you even have some ways to draw a lot of cards without giving up too much. You could have the Mad Scientist weed out the secret and still do something on board. Not to mention the hero power naturally it just like deals with minions as opposed to like Rogue or Druid, which have to double dip.
And the thing Freeze Mage has been doing recently is including 2 loot orders. And the great thing about Loot Hoarder at the moment, because there's quite a lot of aggressive early game decks going around, these Loot Hoarders on turn 2 onwards can start contesting the board. So it gives you a little bit more stability against these early base decks. And it gives you that card drawer as well. So I think Loot Hoarder is a very good meta choice almost for right now because of all the Zoo and the Face Hunter and stuff. So he hasn't got one right now. Scientist is still a very good card, like you say. Can fetch 8 health, or it can fetch that ice block, which is really crucial to the game plan sometimes. But we do see an ice block in hand, so a bit clunky. You always want your Mad Scientist to fetch that, but we'll see what secret he gets. I think he'd probably want an ice barrier because he has the ice block in hand. He doesn't want to double up here.
Yeah, I like this decision. To just push damage as soon as possible. Contest the Mad Scientist. But still, it's looking okay. The fact that Tice even hit on the Scientist and gets card was a really big deal. If he was picking up only Burn, he'd be in a big, awkward spot. And that was what Strifecro was really hoping to find. He was hoping to find an opportunity to maximize his damage per card. And if Tice only had hero powers, there was 3 minions he needed to ping down that turn. So he would have been able to add more damage. Infiltrator sticking is still a big deal. Tice also doesn't have Ice Barrier. He only has Ice Block, so it's still a little uncomfortable at the moment.
I think the good thing for Tice, kind of good, and he didn't get all the card draw from the Acolyte, which kind of sucks, but he did stop 3 damage, and Face Hunter wants to get as much damage as he wants, as we know, so being able that Acolyte Pain was a good play from there, and playing this Raw Doomsayer here, unless he's got an Owl, or I mean, a Doomsayer is a bit awkward, I think, against Face Hunter sometimes because they don't really have to commit anything to the board. They can just hero power, play another weapon, wait for the Doomsayer to pop off, and then just redevelop the board after it. So looking at it now, I think Strifecro is in a really comfortable position.
Yeah, there's still no Ice Barrier, no draw for Tice. This is actually a really bad spot. Man, if he had that opportunity to have Ice Barrier weeded through, he could have played Ice Block. And just freeze your opponent, stall him to the face. There is a legitimate case of using Frostbolt here just to stall him for damage. He has 4 damage he needs to put out with that weapon. You want to play Emperor Thaurissan. You want to start doing other things too. You need to buy time. This Frostbolt not only says deal 3 damage and freeze, it also gain 2 health.
Yeah, he stops that weapon chipping away. You'd be down to 10 guaranteed just from the weapon alone. With the hero power, that's another 4. We see an Arcane Golem, so Strifecro has a lot of damage if he wants to commit to it right now, which is really uncomfortable for Tice because he's not drawing enough cards right now. And that Eagle Horn bow shutting down the Acolyte of Pain may be the thing that has helped Strifecro gain such an advantage because he didn't give Tice the opportunity to draw so much.
Ooh, Ice Lance is not it. And Blizzard also just takes the power off the board by half, not even fully removes it. He is in a very awkward spot. Of course, the opposite end could be just using Emperor Thaurissan, trying to cheapen everything, get an opportunity to play Ice Block for cheaper next turn, assuming his opponent blocks it. And then maybe even utilize or stall for long enough until you can draw Alexstrasza. But the fact is, he doesn't have enough time at the moment.
And the block is probably going to be popped this turn, and he'll be so low that playing a back-to-back ice blocks probably won't be enough. He'll need to draw something else to help him, maybe an ice barrier or a heal bot if he runs it. Some people do, but the cookie cutter build for Freeze Mage these days is usually doesn't include that. I think Taj is almost out of this game. I can't really see him coming back.
Right. I mean, Strifecro just has to hero power his weapon to pop it from this point on. He can make it complicated. In fact, you know what he can do? Oh, okay. I was like, you know what he can do is he could play a trap, make him believe that it's explosive trap or something like that. But what's really funny is then ended up being snake trap, the juggled out, and then ends up killing because secrets don't activate on your turn. I thought that was a really cute play, but highly unnecessary. This is definitely the safer and more appropriate play.
I think as well, Strifecro is in a situation where he's going to win in 2 turns, and he doesn't really need to do something like that. He can literally just keep pressing hero power now until he wins. Just deal with the board, press hero power, wait till Ties does something, which won't be a lot, and then just hero power again to finish him off.
Yeah, I think this Freeze Mage is dead. Even if he draws Alexstrasza, which is his last chance, because yeah, it's his last chance. Strifecro would have no, like, he would not give his opponent an extra mana through the Arcane Golem. That's just like, it's just nonsensical at that point.
Exactly, he just presses hero power and just waits. I mean, that's all he has to do now. I mean, all Ties can really do at this point is try and kill him before he gets killed. But as we can see, his hand doesn't really commit. It's not good for that kind of commitment. He's got a lot of AoE, which doesn't do anything at this point, and he's not going to have the opportunity to draw enough bursts, I don't think.
His only opportunity is to no, actually, there's no unless he has Healbot in his deck. Healbot and Frost Nova.
And this is going to be the final card. That's not enough.
No. He just pings himself, realizes he's out of time, out of luck. Strifecro takes the first game, and Hunter successfully dissects the Freeze Mage. Not always the common case. I feel like Freeze Mage wins more often than not, as long as they keep, Ice Barrier in the hand, for example. Then they're usually have enough stall. But I think a big deciding moment was Thijs not being able to follow up his early game Mad Scientist play very effectively, and Strifecro appropriately taking out Acolyte of Pain, because if he was able to draw a little bit more, maybe he draws into the right answers. And Thijs not getting the Ice Barrier off the secret and holding the copy of Ice Block is definitely not helpful at all.
Yeah, he's a bit of a clunky hand. He had a lot of AoE that really didn't do a lot. He may probably need 1 or 2 of that to be able to deal with the board. And being able to deal with that Acolyte of Pain so easily, only letting him draw 1 card, was probably one of the big deciding factors, because he never drew another opportunity to draw more cards. He never saw those Arcane Intellects or another Acolyte of Pain, for example. So it was looking very much in Strifecro's favor from then on, because everything else was so clunky.
All right. Well, looks like we're going to get ready for our next game here. Trying to figure out what's best for Thijs. I guess he could stick on Freeze Mage, considering that it's still pretty good against the field. Last time I checked, the only thing is that the Druid. The Druid is still like out and about, and if the Druid ends up picking up a win against Freeze Mage, then he has to 3-0. The mage from Strifecro, so that's not feeling pretty good. Sorry, Strifecro's not mage, right? Strifecro's playing the Warlock deck, so he has to 3-0 the Warlock deck, which he could do, hypothetically speaking, but it's just really difficult to do so.
Yeah, Taj might just stick with the mage, just because he has to win with it eventually anyway. So if he could sneak a win this next game, it makes the rest of the series a little bit easier for him. But like he's got Druid, which does very well against Freeze Mage. Warlock, depending on what Warlock it is. As we saw today, we saw Ping win the Handlock Freeze match, but that was down to a very interesting tech card, which I doubt Strifecro is running. That seemed very kind of unique to his own deck building. So I don't know. I think maybe queuing up the Face Hunter, try and get a cheap win on the board, just so he's got a score. But other than that, I'm not sure. It's a tough call for Thijs.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the train of like right now it sort of doesn't matter what he picks, because everything is still dichotomized, and it depends on how Strifecro picks his decks. It could be like, for example, if it's Handlock, then he'd want to pick Hunter, right? Or if it was Zoo, then he'd want to pick Rogue. And if Strifecro chooses to go Druid, he'd want to play, Mech Mage. Or, if it's Freeze, say it is something else too. Like this kind of stuff, it's so variable at this stage that Conquest is purely should be picked off of comfort, I feel. And just really hope that you don't get the one awful matchup that you most likely will have, like Handlock versus Rogue, for example.
Yeah, I think that's true. It seems he goes for his Rogue though. Maybe he feels he doesn't want to commit another game to the Mech Mage after that start. Try another deck, see how that goes for him. I mean, sometimes you can pick another deck, the same deck again, and think, right, I'm just gonna get a win with this, and you could be hit by the same bad draws, or things might not go your way again, and it could demoralize you a bit too much with that deck. So maybe he feels like if he plays this Rogue, he'll feel a lot more comfortable.
All right. Well, Rogue is a class that I know Theis's teammates, RDU, for example, played so much Rogue, and they're one of the best Rogue players out there in their entire region. Theis, in the meantime, he's not particularly known too much for his Rogue play compared to, Druid or Mage or even Warlock, but he's still rather proficient. Against Druid, the most important thing are minions, because you can have all the spells in the world, but minions really help you leverage your position very effectively. So if you have Sap becomes so much better when Violet Teacher is stuck onto the board. Or if if you have a Pilot Shredder already, then you can start utilizing like removal really easily when something stick. That's where Druid gets in trouble against Rogue if it can't keep up with its minion pressure and presence.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we see Theis hands that Violet Teacher there, and he has a prep. He picks up Loatheb again. What would be nice to see from Theis draw? Maybe a Sap, like you said. Because like Violet Teacher on turn 4 with prep Sap on, say, his Shredder is such a massive tempo swing. Because you gain like 2/1/1s, a 3/5. Really hard for the Druid to respond to the next turn, because the swipe doesn't even clear up the Violet Teacher, for example.
Yeah, you're right. You need a little bit more. Spell power swipes, swipe hero power, swipe wrath. No one's really running any kind of 5 damage spot removal for Druid, even though they do have access to some. Have to imagine that he's just going to follow the curve here. There's a turn 3 coin Violet Teacher into Violet Teacher. Nothing really to prep to follow up. Then he has actually a really amazing curve here. He can put double 4-drops back to back into a 5-drop. Then he can prep sprint into something and still have 2 mana remaining, which is absolutely disgusting considering that he can keep up the card flow. Now, Emperor Thorsten introduced a weird dynamic because you clearly need to kill him, but you don't have an easy access without giving up a lot here at yourself. Oh, yeah, I mean, I stand corrected.
Yeah, Violet, that was a good pickup. He gets the Deadly Poison with the SI. And it's 4 mana as well, so it fits the curve really nicely. I mean, innovating out Pharazôn on this turn for Druid is just disgusting. It's reducing... a Druid like this will have a lot of higher value minions, like the Druid of the Claws, like the Snaris, for example, and being able to reduce their cost and make the Druid faster overall is such a... it's just disgusting. I think Pharazôn is a little bit too powerful for decks like these, like this and Freeze Mage. Some of my friends have discussed it might need the Nat Pagal treatment to kind of bring it back to a level playing field. But the only problem with that is we saw what that did to Nat Pagal, and it kind of just killed the card, which I wouldn't want to see. I think they just need to do something with him.
I think Thorsten is fine for now. There's, I mean, if you play Sylvanas here, you can just get sapped, and Sylvanas costs the equal amount. You play her again, but you're starting to take a lot of damage. The teacher is starting to put tokens out. You're not exactly in the best of positions either. And, on the other side, if you don't develop Sylvanas, then your opponent drops Loatheb. You can't really leverage any removal that you get on the other end. It's not the easiest spot here for Strifecro, even though he did get that Thorson.
Yeah, he just goes for... He clears out everything but the token, but the thing with Rogue is all Rogue needs is one minion to start doing some bursts. I don't see Tej doing any bursts right now, but that's kind of the general plan you want against Rogue all the time. Just keep that board clear. Don't give him any targets for that Sharp Sword Oil. And Tej has got some good options here. He can clear up this 4-1 pretty easily with the token, which made Strifecro's play previously like not that great, but he felt the need to do it.
Well, now the Drake's out there, and you have swipe, but the thing is, it's not the best minion you can put forward. With the Shade of Naxxram, Sylvanas is still much better overall, but you have to deal with the spell power.
Yeah, he's quite fortunate the Forest made that Shade 2 cost, because I think if it was just a swipe with a 3 cost Shade, it would just have been an awful turn. It was just trading a spell for a minion, and then Tej would just drop another minion, and then he's back at square. He's back in the same spot he was last turn. So at least having the Shade for 2 is a lot better than not having like the Forest previously. So Forest did actually pay off quite a bit, I think.
Do you like killing off this Shade here, or do you like developing Loatheb?
I think Loatheb's fine.
Does it matter?
Not right now. I mean, if you wanted to kill this Shade, you have another turn to do it anyway, because it's going to stay free on your turn. So the Blade Flurry's an option next turn if he really feels it's necessary to get rid of him. Oh,
yeah, I feel very similar, because if you play the Violet Teacher next turn, you can also squeeze in a Deadly Poison and Eviscerate. Oh, and a Blade Flurry. And that allows you to take care of what normally should be an Ancient of Lore turn. So this was a very good setup from Thijs. Unfortunately, it looks like he's going to have to just trade into Sylvanas and go to another regular plan. But at the same time, Thijs is in a very dominant spot here. Strifecro is going to be hurting on cards. Thijs still has prep sprint and will refill very easily and capitalize on the fact that Druid can't really keep up with the Rogue's tempo here.
Yeah, he's going to have to probably use this shit. Oh, he actually decides to get rid of it with the Blade Flurry. I think that's fine. He's got another Blade Flurry sitting there. He used the prep, so he developed 2 1/1s, and he gets the Farseer as well. So, like you said, Druid just can't keep up the tempo right now. There's just so many minions coming down for this Rogue.
Well, interestingly enough, there is a second swipe here to eliminate the Violet Teacher, and that's a high priority. I suppose the question becomes if you want to drop Big Game Hunter, and a lot of road decks are starting to put Dr. Boom more regularly. Before it was, maybe a V-sharp contrast in styles and what you could do there, but it's really interesting because now I think people are really starting to do that commonly. So I don't think it'd be wrong to keep it, but I still think that you'd want to consider dropping it for sure.
Yeah, if people are starting to cycle out the Safe Sea deckhand, I find now in lists, and putting that Dr. Boom instead. So maybe they just want a better late game. They're not just going for that kind of super fast oil rogue builds like they did at the start when the deck was created. It slowed down just a little bit. And it keeps up with decks like Druid when you slow it down, putting Dr. Boom. Because they do have to keep hold of these big game hunters, because it's the only way they can hard removal it. And if you look at what he's already used 2 swipes and a Wrath, if I remember rightly. So a lot of his removal's already gone.
Well, I'm pretty sure that almost whatever the Rogue does at this point, and that involves playing Van Cleef, is just going to run him over. Especially considering that there's no actual way for Druid to keep up with a big minion like this right now, unless he picks up... actually, hold on. He played Van Cleef as an 8/8. I thought he was going to play a 6/6. So this actually does get answered by Big Game Hunter, and Strifecro's rewarded for being able to have that foresight to maybe show off that he doesn't have a minion to be played.
Yeah, that was such a clean board clear for Tej as well. I mean, Cenarius is one of those cards which is supposed to help you regain board, but it just did nothing in that situation. That's how far ahead the Rogue felt at this point. But now he's got a 4/4 and a 4/2. I mean, the SI will clear. They eviscerate. That pretty much answers it. And he's got a perfect mana curve for it. I mean, you could Drake, SI, Eviscerate, and clear the board. And once again, Strifecro would be on the back foot.
He plays double fan. All right, so Tice just gonna seize back control. At this stage, Druid's not even threatening to kill through damage of the Force of Nature Savage Roar. So if he draws that, he realistically might be thinking about clearing as well. On the flip side, Rogue, if Tice uses sprint number 2 and there's a lot of resources sank into trying to leverage the board and unsuccessfully doing so, then maybe Tice just runs out of damage. But I find that I still find it highly unlikely at this stage right now.
This is so frustrating for Strifecro. I mean, if I was in a situation now, you've seen the Rogue go toe-to-toe. He's just removing everything you play. And you haven't seen a sap yet. And you finally get that Sludge Belcher, the one card that might protect you just from a bit of this board damage. And it's just going to get sapped. And it's just so tragic for Strifecro.
I think Tice is calculating if he has lethal. I believe he's a few points off with the Deadly Poison and the Oil. Doesn't unfortunately have that second Blade Flurry.
I mean, he could commit to all the damage right now. Because he's, like you said, he's not really afraid of Force of Nature. And he does have a sprint available to him, which he could use next turn. And if he gets a Blade Flurry off that, he'll surely just close out the game. So yeah, he does decide to go for it. Just go for the burst, which is, I think, is the right line of play. What's the Druid really going to do at this point?
Yeah, short of Tree of Life, right? Like, there's nothing you can do. You could restore 27 health. That'd be pretty awesome. Double Taunt does do something. Imagine if this was an opportunity to be defended with the Vitality Totem or something. But, Double Taunt is still some way to get past. Or maybe he chooses to be aggressive with Druid Claw because his opponent has Blade Flurry. Doesn't matter either way. And he might need to charge this Druid Claw. I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, I think so as well. He's sitting on that Savage Roar as well. He's got to try and beat Tice at some point. There's only so many turns you can just keep dropping taunts. So he does need kind of an end game for this. So I think Tice will just go for the sprint.
I mean, Tice is pretty much decked out at the sprint. And he just has to Blade Flurry for the win here.
And there it is.
And he's got an Eviscerate too, so he's got plenty of overkill. That's going to wrap up game 2. Tice is going to jump out with a tie onto the series, and Strifecro will have to win with Druid some other place. But remember that they're Freeze Mage, so he still has like a favorable position somewhere down the line in the series.
As final lineups go, Strifecro is still okay. I mean, the 1/1 isn't too bad for him. He can still recover quite easily with his lineup. So it's going to very much depend on what they kind of read each other's going to pick. If he can get that fast Druid into Freeze Mage, it'd be excellent for him. Not most certainly, but it's going to be good for him to get a win on the board with that because of the matchup.
So there's Strifecro's Druid and Druid and a Warlock remaining. Still no signs of what Warlock that is from Strifecro, right? I'm guessing I'm still guessing that it's Zoo. We haven't seen that today yet, even though we've seen a couple of Warlocks. Strifecro also really likes playing Handlock too. I mean, personally, I think all kinds of Warlock are fun to play at the moment, and I think it's resumed to being one of the better classes here. It's just interesting to see that at one point Warlock was always considered to be a class that people would see because of its hero power and what it allows you to do, and then it fell off for a long time, for several months in fact. Now it's back, and rightfully so.
It's crazy how Imp Gang bosses made Zoo viable again. It took one card for Zoo to come back. And another thing with Strifecro as well, I do recall he has been playing Demon Lock quite a bit as well. I remember seeing a list where he's running Dread Infernal in his Demon Lock, so it could potentially be that as well. He seems very versatile with the class itself, and classes like Warlock and Mage are excellent for kind of keeping your opponent on their toes because they're never going to know what it is until the game starts. So it's very hard to get a read on their lineup. You kind of have to kind of go based on what they've been playing recently, kind of having a bit of research done to kind of get a better answer to what they're playing.
I'm liking just going with the hunter from this position from Tice, just because I really just don't want to avoid. I want to avoid the freeze mage versus druid as much as possible. So maybe you can let your opponent have that opportunity to play druid, and if he wins and doesn't win, it's almost the same exact thing either way. I think hunter's more than appropriate pick here for Tice. At this stage, though, 1-1, it's still somewhat inconsequential.
What do you think Strifecro should pick? Do you think he should just queue back into his druid, hope he hits the freeze mage?
Yeah, it feels like Warlock can easily be abused too much by freeze mage, and even hunter to a certain extent. I think druid definitely seems to be his better pick here. I'm still picking Tice overall in this series. That rogue versus druid win was pretty key.
Yeah, I agree. I think the hunter is the best pick here, but he actually picks his freeze mage. So Strifecro reads correctly. He finds the freeze mage matchup, and this might be the game that helps decide the series, depending on how this goes.
Huh. Well, he has wild growth. That's really impactful. I think the other cards he's searching for, like Emperor Thorson and a good curve. Meanwhile, Tice, he knows what to do. He has to get his early draw. He has to make sure to get the right cards like Mad Scientists.
Yeah, well, I guess you... yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I'd be tempted to keep the Arcane Intellect just to fish for stuff a bit faster. Druids can be quite slow, like you said, with the Wilder Growth. Shade of Nax is really good for him because he gets that early curve. I guess Strifecro just runs away to Druid Claw. I would, definitely keep the Arcane Intellect just for that early draw. Oh, wow, that's a very interesting hand.
For Tice?
Yeah, he gets he has the opportunity for turn 2 Arcane Intellect and turn 3 Arcane Intellect. So, or he can just develop a Loot Hoarder and then Arcane Intellect, Arcane. Yeah. So he's got a lot of card draw options here, which is what he wants, really.
I think Loot Hoarder is better just because you keep the coin. Coin's pretty useful in this matchup if you need to hit Alex Strauss earlier, or convert into more damage. The opponent only has 4 mana, so he can hero power it down, and if not, Loot Hoarder sneaks in 2 damage, and it's always going to draw you that card later on. Now, Acolyte is interesting because I always hear two sides of this argument. Like, first is that Acolyte should be dropped soon because you could silence it with the Keeper of the Grove, or you can tempt him to silence with the Keeper of the Grove. And the reality is more card draw. The other side of it is that Arcane Intellect directly opens up more options because you guarantee 2 draws, and it's immediate, as opposed to Acolyte has to, like, bump into something and you have to wait another turn. And you can weigh your options better.
I think Tej played the Acolyte over Arcane Intellect this turn. Is he just wants to slow Strifecro down. Revealing that Shade as well is always good. And he actually picks up a Blizzard. It won't finish off the Shade. But not only that, he's got a Frostbolt as well. So I guess it gives him the option when he wants to Frostbolt this Shade down because he's revealed it. And that's what he's going to go for. So, and the Doomsayer is nice here as well because it'll force Strifecro to either commit more damage or just commit more damage to take it out, or a Silence. And Silence is the worst case scenario.
Yeah. He also just drew the Claw Charge. Perfectly fine, justified. I was wondering if he had any room to innervate plays this turn, but it doesn't seem so. Everything's pretty clunky. So let's see what Emperor Thorson can do for Tice. Just cheapen some draw cards, some freeze. Nothing too wild and extraordinary yet. But Strifecro still has to deal with this.
Yeah, this most certainly is going to be dealt with in some way or another. So what he has reduced so far, I think is pretty good. He's got some health, he's got some removal, he's got some draw. So he's got kind of a mix of everything. So it gives him a lot more options of what he wants to decide to do next turn, because he has pretty much all the paths to go down for his plays. But Clean Swipe comes out. Probably see a hero power on this just to tidy this up without committing too much of his minions. So Strifecro gains the board back, and Tej is probably Tyson has to decide what he values most here. Does he value his health or does he value his draw?
It's a good question. I think you should still value, generally speaking, pulling into your win condition as the freeze mage. Like, you can negate the damage effectively if you double Arcane Intellect and Ice Barrier. Set up for a better Blizzard, because this is a very Blizzard board. Not to mention that it's 6 mana that you can do a 3 damage AoE with Thalnos. So I think double Arcane Intellect into the Ice Barrier. Very good turn for Tice. Still needs to find a way to set up Ice Block, though, before he draws into Alexstrasza.
We might see that in the following turn, but I think Chinolor is going to help out here. He might be able to get... Well, if he gets 2 Savage draws, that would be incredible, because he has the Innovate sitting there ready. But, I mean, he's got the option of a Blizzard Doomsayer here if he really wants to hard clear everything. And he's got back-to-back Blizzards as well, and the Sludge Belcher's already taken some damage, so I think Tyche is looking pretty comfortable right now.
I mean, maybe. The fact that his opponent used Ancient of Lore is a pretty big deal. That's 1 less heal potential off of Druid if you use Alexstrasza on an Ice Block. So he's working with less ways to rebound and more damage within range. I think Doomsayer is still a little too optimistic, considering your opponent just Ancient of Lore and he's holding a specific set of cards for a while. I think Blizzard is okay here with Thalnos, and I think you'd want to use the 6-mana Blizzard, a little bit more expensive. Although, if you use regular Blizzard,
I think 6-mana Blizzard's fine. It holds the board there for the turn. I mean, it does its job, and then next turn he can maybe draw into something. He can maybe decide if he wants to commit, say, a Doomsayer and then a Blizzard next turn, but back-to-back Blizzard should be fine.
I was just thinking that if you use 5-mana Blizzard, you can ping the Ancient of Lore and then set it up so that guarantees, and then you can keep Thalnos for damage combo, because if you look, normally with Thalnos you do 21 damage if you do the full Fireball, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, because you have 2 more mana due to Thaurissan. You can even weave in another Frostbolt in there, so that becomes 25. It's a lot of damage to consider.
Yeah,
either way, it doesn't really seem to matter that much. Just food for thought.
So he goes for the draw here before he... we see a Zombie Chow pickup, actually. That's a bit clunky. I guess he just wants his Savage draw as fast as possible. He just wants to be able to... Because we don't see any secrets down from Tyche yet, so he's not protected by the Ice Block. I wonder what Strifecro's weighing up here. Certainly,
you want to Flame Strike concern. But even if his opponent has Flame Strike, it's almost like you're bound duty to start pressuring the board enough, so that way you might draw into lethal. Even if he has Flame Strike, he doesn't have Ice Block up. So it's okay. And Strifecro also needs to prioritize armoring up with his Druid's hero power. That's really important. So that way, even after Alexstrasza, you still have some life left over. So 17, 18 health.
So Tyche actually has a lot of damage in his hand now, picking up that second Ice Lance. I mean, he has both secrets as well, so you can set up his Ice Block, you can set up 8 health as well. But he's probably trying to think. He's got to consider trying killing him now. I mean, you don't really wait for Alex now. As long as you keep drawing burn, you're going to be in a situation where you can just burst him down without Alex, especially with that Blood Mage Thalnos.
Yeah, it's like I said. He can do 25 damage if he picks up the second Frostbolt here. Oh no, he used the Frostbolt right on the Shade.
Oh,
so
right,
he can't
that's true. Yeah,
actually squeeze it in. All right, so the most he can do is 22 then, because he can use in a hero power as well. That's still so much. That's 3. He's 3 off lethal effectively when he has 10 mana. He might draw Pyroblast. He might develop secrets. Pyroblast a phase, try to go for combo. Just do it manually. Go for Alexstrasza as another Pyroblast.
I mean, picking up Alexstrasza is great, but it's not necessary now as long as like you said, he picks up the damage he needs. I mean, Strifecro here, he really needs to get that combo. He really needs to be able to either finish Taish quickly or finish him before he starts playing some secrets. And that's a Frost Nova.
Oh, that's a really good draw, I think. Because now this gives him the opportunity to develop both of his secrets here. His opponent's holding so many cards that like double combo could realistically be a possibility too. So if he Frost Novas with the two secrets, not bad. Although it doesn't develop any card draw, he could be thinking about ditching Thanos and then playing Ice Block and Frost Nova and pinging. That also could be a strong possibility. So that way he has a card draw out there preemptively. I also wouldn't blame him for this if he wanted to do that.
I do like the development of secrets this turn though, because turn 9 you haven't got Alex now, so it's just such a nice curve out here. You get both Ice Block and Barrier, so now you're protected from combo. So it's not as much of a threat as it was last turn, and you stopped more damage. So you just wait. It's just stalling out much more here. He does need a card draw. He does need a cycle, but I think it fit the curve so well there. It was almost too tempting not to do.
The board being frozen means that combo was not going to kill him. He's got 29 health effectively. So Strifecro can't do that. You develop another Azure Drake. I think he wants to avoid at all costs his opponent having like a really nasty Flame Strike, and then he has to build back up the board from nothing.
Yeah, everything here is vulnerable to Flame Strike. Even Sylvanas can just ping it as well. It's not looking great for Strifecro. I think the Drake is fine because you just want that card draw. I mean, fishing for the other Savage draw here would be great for him because he just has so much damage. That Innovate.
He's keeping the Innervates.
Would you Innovate a Shredder here? Because even if he does Flame Strike, it comes back and it gives you something at least. It doesn't just give you a completely empty board and you're not starting from scratch. You'll get at least one creature to start up your offense again.
Well, I do like the fact that Strifecro insists on hero power stacking his armor, but how much do you want to use 14 mana in one turn? What does that even allow you to do that you can't normally do? I know you can double combo for 12, but you can't even squeeze in a big game hunter.
Tijs is actually just going for it here.
Well, I mean, he just needs to draw into damage here. Like he's all in effectively. He's falling too far behind. His only hope is to draw cards.
Takes him down to 6 health. He just needs a fireball to finish this game off because the hero power won't make any difference here with the ping. He gets the Ancient of Lore.
Hold on. Does Ancient of Lore and Savage Roar allow him to do anything? Savage Roar when there's 10, 15, 20, 23. No, actually, he can't pop it. That's really annoying.
I guess he uses a side here. I mean, the problem is Tij has effective free draws coming up unless he silences something because the Foulness and the Loot Hoarder. I think I would much rather heal here. I want to see this Pilot Shredder develop. Just like I said, like he's not feeling removal anymore. Even if he does top deck a Flame Strike, at least the Pilot Shredder would bring something back and threaten him.
Yeah, Strifecro can go for the safer option here. His opponent's obviously on 2 draws. And you want to prioritize hero powering. He could pop the Ice Block just by going for a normal combo, but he leaves himself open to die Fireball top deck. And there's 3 draws to do it. It's just very likely that there's something bad that's going to happen. Tice needs a lot of help.
He wants to take out the Foulness. Yeah, that's important. Just puts him a little bit further out of lethal range.
I mean, Frost Nova help. If he picks up Antonitis, this could be the card he was looking for. Acolyte's awkward. He gets Pyroblast, but Now it's like, actually, he doesn't have to Pyroblast this turn. He can Acolyte Ping Frost Nova. Guarantee himself 2 draws.
What to do?
Yeah, he managed to top himself up to 12 health. So just out of Pyroblast range. So it was good good from Strifecro there. I think he should still go for card draw because he's still behind that ice block. So I don't know. I mean, do you just Pyroblast and hope again? It's just it depends how risky he wants to play. I mean, I think both are kind of a risk in their own right.
I think Acolyte's less of a risk because he can't actually kill you with 5 minions on board. And you Frost Nova.
Oh yeah,
you already used the silence, and he doesn't have room to use the combo. He was one. Like, if he switched that Acolyte for Antonitis, he would have had that. I think he would have had the guaranteed win.
Again, everything just seems so awkward for Strifecro. He's definitely going to hero power because he still just wants to put himself out of that range. We have 8 mana and 2 innovates. Those innovates have sat in his hand for a very long time.
Yeah, he got punished pretty heavily for keeping them for so long.
Wait, is that 2 forces of nature? So he spawns 2 treants.
Yeah, I mean, he's just trying to deny draw. Gonna hero power. He has lethal anyways with the Cenarius or not lethal, but pop potential with Savage Roar and the Cenarius.
Oh, and there's that Flame Strike we were talking about.
Yeah, but he doesn't need that. He just has to Pyroblast this turn, and then he has Antonitis Ice Block the following turn, and then he's got 7 damage. So, suppose at 13, the most he can gain is 2, so it's 15. Thijs should have Overkill on Strifecro by 2 damage. And now the only thing that you're worried about is a Kazan Mystic. If you Flame Strike and clear the board now, sure. If your opponent develops the board, then you Pyroblast, get your Ice Pop. It feels like the same thing. If you Pyroblast now versus Pyroblast following turn, you're still hoping that your opponent can't pop your block. But Thijs should win this game here. And Freeze Mage defeating Druid is a really big deal because that was like the one matchup where he was worried about potentially not being able to kill his opponent.
Well, this is what we were talking about earlier. We were worried for Thijs that this matchup may effectively decide the series for him, but he's managed to pull a game with this set. And what's good about that last play, I think, better than that Flame Strike, is he still has the potential of drawing a Fireball. I'm pretty sure he's got one left, right? So we could even speed up. Yeah, so we can even speed up his kill turn. And like you said, he guarantees the Fireball from Antonitis anyway. So yeah, it's looking really good for Thijs. I can't see Strifecro winning this. So what does Thijs actually have left?
The only alternative is to play a Pilot Shredder and hope like Vitality Totem comes out of it somehow. I think he's really considered that possibility, so he plays the Pilot Shredder. And Fireball is just going to end the game anyways. And Thijs gets rewarded. He had the opportunity to set it up anyways, and it would have forced Strifecro to be in a lucky spot. Well done, though, and Thijs takes a 2-1 lead.
Yeah, it's really good of Thijs to take the initiative when he had all that damage in his hand. He knew that he couldn't sit around waiting for Alex, so he just threw all that damage in his face, and from then on his game plan was just to finish him off as quick as possible. And I think Thijs played that exceptionally well. And it's like you're saying, Strifecro was really punished for not using those innovates. He just sat in his hand all game. They just did nothing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they could have done a lot in terms of development, but Strifecro held on to them on the off chance that he was able to draw into more damage or a better ability to rebound onto the board. And as a result, it didn't happen. Strifecro is now down 1-2, and Thijs is in a position to win the series from here. He's got that Hunter remaining, and Hunter to defeat the Druid is a very big possibility, as well as maybe take out that Warlock as well.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be surprised if it wasn't Face Hunter here. So the Face Hunter Warlock matchup would be really good for him. I mean, if it's hand locked, the anti-kill bots can really swing. that matchup. It can be quite even depending on if they're drawn and depending on how early the handlock can get taunts going like Ancient Watcher. But I mean, I'm expecting Zoo from Strifecro. So Tej, if he plays well and gets the right draw, should be able to close out this series pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so too. Feeling pretty good for Tyson's spot in general. I know he's been looking for better tournament results lately. He hasn't had, like, outside of a top 4 Avaya game, he's always been a little hard on himself in terms of performance. But generally speaking, I think he's a really positive thinking guy. And ultimately, regardless of what happens this series, it still doesn't eliminate either player. So don't worry, Strifecro fans, if you're tuning in, you're like, I don't want him to lose and be out of the tournament. He's still okay, regardless if he drops this game or the series. But in a couple of weeks' time, when the finals comes, it's down to business.
And Tej has been doing pretty well so far. He's only lost to Ardu from what I can see from these results. He beat both Dog and Faramir. So if he beats Strifecro here as well, I think there's another result that I haven't got. He may have played already. He's going to be looking good on the tables. Strifecro beat RDU, but he's lost to both Reynad and Tide so far. Again, there might be other results I don't have yet because this is week 5, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, it's week 5. So I've only got about 3 weeks worth of results. So Tej is looking pretty good on the score sheet, the overall score sheet right now. Strifecro, if he could probably do with this win to start knocking himself back up the table. But as we said, Tej is looking really comfortable, and getting another win is going to boost his confidence.
Well, I think we're about to get started in just a couple of seconds here. As we have Druid versus the Hunter. And Tice's opening hand, a little awkward. Beast of Sergeant has a 1-drop, but it's basically the same as a Murloc Raider. If you drop it on 1, which isn't the most exciting 1-drop to be playing. Snake Trap and Eaglehorn Bow, not the best either, considering that you'd want to just take the opportunity to get board damage. So I'd assume that he'd be willing to toss everything away, although keeping Abusive Sergeant is reasonable because you go on turn 1.
Yeah, it's like guaranteed turn 1. It's not the best turn 1. I mean, you always want a Leponome instead, but it's nice. It's always nice to be on curve as fast route because ultimately your goal is to beat them as fast as possible. And if you miss your 1-drop, you're missing 2 damage nearly all the time, unless they respond to that 1-drop with like a Wrath or something. So I think Tej will hold on to the Sergeant just to get that guaranteed turn 1 pressure.
All right, well, Abuse Sergeant is tossed. No, he gets Leroy and Kill Command. Druid gets Wild Growth into Keeper of the Grove, but is always the top of the deck. Just draw perfectly from this point on, and Tice is good to go.
Yep, so he gets that Leponome we talked about. He also got the Abusive Sergeant back, even though he threw it away. So even if he didn't pull the Leponome, he still had an option at least. He probably won another 1-drop here, maybe a Worgen. So he can follow up with the Abusive and just kind of optimize his curve. But Hero Power is still it's an excellent Hero Power, and especially in this type of deck, it's just excellent. I mean, you want to utilize it as much as possible because it almost acts as an extra card for you. Because when you're pressing that Hero Power, you're always doing damage, which is ultimately what all your cards do anyway, and you just get more options in your hand for later on.
Agreed, but this is... Oh, man. Snake Trap's pretty awkward. Just going to have to Hero Power. The fact that Strifecro needed to do this so that way he can Wild Growth and then drop Keep of the Grove into a nice curve from that point on. Tice missing his turn 2 play here. Hero Power still is something to do, but the fact is you're giving Druid time to play Wild Growth now.
Yeah, you want a Scientist, most certainly, or a Knife Juggler. Snake Trap, like you said, is an awkward pickup. It's strange actually because some people are really for Snake Trap, and some people are really against it because Snake Traps it doesn't really complement the playstyle that much because Explosive Trap does immediate damage, where Snake Trap is banking on your opponent playing into it. But some people play like one of each. I've been playing one of each, and I quite like it. And Worgen Hero Power is not too bad either, because he still gets that immediate 2 damage. He still gets a developer minion, I mean, a lot of the hunter's minions range from 2 to kind of 4 attack anyway. So I think Ty's just looking decent. The snake traps are just a bit awkward.
This is awkward too. The Keeper of the Grove has nothing to come down on. No silence, or I guess you could do 2 damage to your opponent's face. You want to keep that Innervate for Dr. Boom. That is so good at play with 5 mana Innervate into Dr. Boom and start pressuring. You can even race from that point on. The 1 damage Boom bots can trade it to anything and does damage to the face.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be super important for that turn 5 Dr. Boom. Like you said, it gives him the opportunity to race, and then Strifecro still has the option of drawing stuff like Savage Roar and Druid of the Claws, just to even speed up the racing process. And when you've got a 7/7 on board and a hunter can't deal with it, or he has to start trading, that's fine as well, because a hunter's trading away damage to deal with this giant 7/7 you've dropped 2 turns early. Oh, we actually decided to go with the Innovate and drop the Sludge Belcher for a bit of safety.
The Keeper is too valuable to use it on something like that. You need to use it to shut down a minion, silence the Mad Scientist. Like, there's so much utility from it. Dr. Boom, like, it's just playing too optimistically to use Dr. Boom next turn and then give up developing anything else better. The Owl Draw is so key, actually, here for Tice. That way he can maximize damage on his cards. I wonder if he's thinking about developing Snake Trap here at all. Okay. Just wants to put out as much damage as possible.
I think with Snake Trap in this matchup as well, Swipe deals with it so easily, and it's a bit of an awkward card for the Hunter to have in this matchup specifically, whereas in other matchups, against Mech Mage, for example, I think Snake Trap's really good, because outside of Goblin Blast Mage, it's very hard for Mech Mage to deal with 1/1 tokens, right? Invest in 2 mana into that ping, which they generally don't want to do, especially early on. So I think maybe a Hero Power is fine here, and just swing. Or maybe just try and make him think it's an explosive trap.
I mean, it's always the gamble, right? If you wait for a long time and you play the secret, it just adds more ambiguity to what it actually is. Oh,
right.
Snake Trap.
He wasted no time testing it, just threw it straight out there, and now he has a general idea of what it is. So do you think Strifecro will race him from here on? He's just wasted his swipe, and I guess you'd want to keep your swipe if you knew it was a Snake Trap. Overdeveloped, say, a Drake.
Yeah, but I mean, this is where like Leroy becomes hard to deal with normally if you don't have a Wrath, but in this case, Keeper of the Grove can definitely deal with it. Then you have Dr. Boom, and you just keep attacking to the face. He just gave you 2 more damage to return. I mean, Savage Roar could realistically be game ender if he doesn't have it. Tice has so much damage though. He's got 4, 6, 8, 13 damage just in his hand, assuming he can get everything else optimized.
Yeah, he's gonna need the Hounds. Wow, that's a good draw. Because now we can utilize the synergy with Kill Command, making it 5 damage. Because one thing Face Hunter probably has a bit of trouble with these days, more so than before, is the lack of beasts. They got like 2 Haunted Creepers, 2 Animal Comps, Unleash the Hounds. That's just about it. But here, I think I would take the opportunity to use the 5 damage on Face here, rather than waiting and trying to bank on drawing a Haunted Creeper later. He goes for the Abusive. I mean,
I'm okay with this. Your opponent used a swipe. He's calculating for Savage Roar death too. 6, 8, 14. Yeah, I should be able to Hero Power and go face these 2. And he still has enough damage to kill his opponent next turn. Not to mention that his opponent still might trigger Snake Trap in the attempt to try and defend.
He's still thinking about these 2 dogs.
Well, one's attack to the face. The only question is if you need that. If Arcane Golem hits with Kill Command, that's 9 damage. So attack on this face might not matter if your opponent's going to Hero Power anyways and he clears the board. But it's still important just in the event where it is.
Oh, the Savage Roar. So he did actually draw at the top. So Tej made the correct decision there, playing around Savage Roar. I mean, he's got the option of Ancient of Lore here for the heal. But the problem is he can't really clear the minions effectively because he pops the Snake Trap. So the Snake Trap actually becomes really good in this situation because it gives him the activator for the kill command, which will ultimately give him lethal to win the game. So I guess you have to Ancient of Lore heal.
Yeah, if you Ancient of Lore heal, attacking because of Snake Trap, there's 5 damage on board and you leave 4 remaining. This is not worth it. So you go 3, 4, 6 to face. 6 to face. That's not enough. Your opponent's just going to swing back. The 5 health you gain is just negated, and then kill command and arcane golem's enough. So I'm pretty sure no matter how Strifecro cuts this cookie, looks like he's dead.
Yeah, it comes down to that Snake Trap really, because it gives him, it makes his opportunities.
Actually, if he trades down with the Abusive Sergeant and then trades everything else down, he survives by 1 HP unless his opponent draws 1 damage. Right about that. His opponent will have 4 damage on board, kill command's 9, and then arcane golem's 13. He only has 7 mana, he can't hero power.
Oh yeah, so it comes down to an Abusive Sergeant, which he doesn't draw, and well, Strifecro has the option of Savage Roar next turn. So now Tej has to consider, well, has to clear a bit as well, but hopefully leave Strifecro at enough where he can finish him off next turn.
That's really interesting, because now Tej has to a second Savage Roar opportunity here. He played around Savage Roar once. Will he play it around again? 5, 8, 14, 15. So if he just kills off one of these minions, he still should be able to. He still should be able to play around one Savage Roar. Now the problem is you can't play Arcane Golem and hit the face, because then you play into the combo potential. Like, what if he just has the full Force of Nature Savage Roar and then you die? That's tough, man. Almost very difficult spot here. Tej might have to part ways with the kill command here or his Arcane Golem.
Yeah, he's got to take a risk somewhere, and I guess if he's going to lose the combo, he's going to lose the combo. That's just the way it's going to be. So he's going to trade into the. Okay, so he trades into the 2/1, and he still gets to leave the snake alive. But it doesn't really. Oh yeah, well, leaving the snake alive is fine because he still has the owl to activate his kill command. So now Strifecro was probably hoping to draw a Druid Claw there. But
right.
It wasn't meant to be.
Strifecro's in a similar position. He's still like 2 points off from killing his opponent, but he can deny his opponent from killing him by hero powering and playing Dr. Boom. Or even Emperor Thaurissan if he wants to reduce the amount of minions on board while still representing lethal. Drake might even be slightly better than Thaurissan because you get to draw a card, which I don't know what you could realistically draw, though, for 4 mana or less that you'd want to have a higher impact than just hero powering. Hero power is super important for kill command, though, because your opponent will have 7 damage next turn.
Yeah. A low fab would have been nice. It's a shame. I think Thaurissan is probably the best option, like you said, because it reduces his chances of beating you, and you still have lethal available to you without overcommitting too much to the board.
Yeah, sacrificing the Sludge Belcher and Flames is also okay. You still have only 4 bodies. So at this point, it's like if he has Unleash the Hounds and Kill Command, you die, but whatever. So Tej just needs 1 point of damage for 3 mana or less, and that should do it. Yeah, Wolf Rider's exact. Wow, Tej ends the series right here, just barely being able to eke out Strifecro. That was really tightly contested back and forth.
Yeah, the end of that game is really interesting because they both had to consider what each other had to be able to finish each other off. So it came to a very kind of like optimal trade-in. They're trying to play around each other's win conditions. So yeah, it was really good end to that match.
Yeah, for sure. So fun stuff all around. But Tice takes the better of this series here. I'm looking at that Freeze Mage vs. Druid game. In fact, Druid seemed to be the weak point here throughout the entire series of Strifecro, just not being able to put it in against Freeze Mage or Hunter. Um, and I think also dropping the rogue game is understandable, but still you're expecting Druid to perform better than that. Another argument against Druid for necessarily bringing it in Conquest, people say Druid is decent against a lot of stuff, not amazing. And in this case, Strife's Druid was subpar in all these matchups, unfortunately.
Yeah, he would have wanted to win that freeze mage matchup. I mean, that might have been a reason why he brought it because of the popularity of freeze mage going around, and where it's a bit better than warrior right now. Warrior seems to be in a kind of a clunky spot. But yeah, very good game to Taj. Though he played exceptionally well. I really enjoyed all the matches from them both.
Awesome. Great stuff. And that wraps up our third series of the day. We still have another one coming up. We have 6-0 RDU, and we're going to have an interesting dynamic there because I know both of them are Salt Boys. Both of them are really competitive, and they want to get those Gosu Gamer ranking points. Want to give a shout out to the NVIDIA guys. Make sure to check out their website, esports.geforce.com, as well as anything else regarding the competition. There's a big open portion of it. A few of us were even thinking about entering it, but just 8 weeks is a hard commitment, especially if we're traveling this much. But not necessarily for people who just want to enjoy some casual Hearthstone fun. So check out the link, esports.geforce.com, and you can thank NVIDIA GeForce on Twitter. Meanwhile, guys, we're going to take a break. Get ready for our last series of the day. Once again, it's 6-0 from Team Archon, RDU from Team Nihilum, and Tice has just taken the series 3-1. Well done to him, and we'll see him again in the upcoming weeks. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back after a few minutes with more Hearthstone Pro-Am Tournament brought to you by NVIDIA GeForce.